Following a pitch by marketing executive Danny Moore, Nismo, the motorsport division of Nissan, establishes the GT Academy to recruit skilled players of the racing simulator Gran Turismo and turn them into real racing drivers. This is Gran Turismo, based on a true story.
And welcome to a new episode of the Nosebleed AV Club. You look confused by the gag. Do you recognize that?
So it actually cut off.
It cut off?
I heard a little bit of it. Is it the fucking Wiz Khalifa song from Fast and Furious?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was cut off. It was cutting out on my end. I heard like, I was like, I know that anywhere.
Naturally, we're talking Gran Turismo, so of course you got to have. Am I right or?
Yeah, no. Rest in peace, Paul Rudd.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
Just kidding. Do not. That's bad. That's bad juju. Do not wish that on Paul Rudd. I like Paul Rudd. I'm a big fan of Captain America.
I'm a big fan of Baskin Robbins.
Oh, they know.
They know.
They'll always know. Yeah.
Okay, so enough of that.
Yes, from one car movie to another, Fast and Furious truly passed the torch to Gran Turismo.
As VOG said, we are talking about the movie Gran Turismo, which is, of course, based on the game, but also based on a true story. It follows the story of Jann Mardenborough. Oh, sorry, not Jann. Jann Mardenborough. Who...
Your American is showing.
Yeah. Who somehow became a racer off this game, which is one of the craziest things about this movie.
Truly the most inspiring racist of all time, I gotta say.
This movie has a really, really, really strong leading cast. So I'm sure you're familiar with this guy, but Archie Madekwe.
Yeah. Yes, and you know why I'm familiar with Archie.
I do know why you are familiar with him.
But okay, other than the obvious movie, which I'll say because maybe our audience isn't as keen on it, I'm a huge fan of Midsommar, and Archie is in that. He's also in Saltburn. He's also there's another movie that
Beau is Afraid.
What's up? Oh yeah, Beau is Afraid. Yeah,
haven't seen any of those, but have heard nothing but good things. So I can only imagine this guy's fucking resume is pretty fucking solid. Just
great movie selection, great projects to be a part of. I haven't seen Saltburn yet. I've heard things about it, but I am very much curious to watch it. So yeah.
Jack Salter is played by David Harbour. Needs no introduction. Stranger Things, Black Widow, Hellboy, and of course, 2016's Suicide Squad.
Iconic movie.
Untouchable.
For so many reasons.
Truly untouchable.
Untouchable. Maybe somebody should have touched it. Let's be honest.
Maybe it was touched too much. Release the Ayer cut.
Maybe it was touched too much, actually. Yeah.
And
come on now, say my favorite, baby. Let's go. I need to hear this. Say his name. Give him to me. Who plays my man, the marketing genius?
Executive Danny Moore is played by none other than Bootstrap Bill Turner's son, Orlando Bloom of Pirates of the Caribbean. A movie that is held in high regard here at the Nosebleed AV Club. And apart from that, he's also in Lord of the Rings. Plays Legolas, of course. How can you not know that? And again, needs no introduction, but he got one.
God damn, did he fucking age? Holy fuck.
He looks so bad.
I don't know if it's just been that long since I've seen Orlando Bloom in a fucking movie, but when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, he's old.
Yeah, that is not Will Turner. That is not Legolas. I don't know who that is.
Yeah. But it might also be just because I watch Pirates of the Caribbean so much that image of who Orlando Bloom is, that's like what's burned into my memory is young Orlando Bloom.
Prime Orlando Bloom. Prime
Orlando Bloom. But hey, listen, to be honest, like if we're just talking about looks, he doesn't look bad. It just isn't like the Orlando Bloom that we're all like, I mean, at least I'm not used to.
I mean, personally, my favorite look for him was Legolas. I was like, oh yeah, he's a good looking dude. Will Turner, yeah. I mean, we're getting sidetracked here. We can't. Once again, Pirates of the Caribbean takes over.
He's called Legolas in that movie because he's been running in my mind all day long.
Anyways, let's get into the movie. Let's enough Orlando Bloom glazing.
Oh, dude, the only thing glazed was those goddamn brakes. Before we go anywhere with this movie, I think we should share some backstory, right?
Okay.
This podcast.
Okay.
So Gran Turismo, to me and Matt specifically, holds a lot of significance. I'd even dare to say like some sentimental value, not because we're like super hardcore like racing fans or anything, but a part of where a lot of our joint ventures that we've done in the past come to fruition is over PSN game chat. In the more recent years, Gran Turismo has been like our go-to game to just like kind of play and like, have conversations. Cause we live about 3 hours away from each other. We're not like a type of family that like talks on the phone that frequently. Like these game nights are like bonding time together and our time to like, catch each other up on our lives. So I feel like as we get older, like Gran Turismo specifically will hold like a kind of like a special place in our memory, just because that is the game that we go to and like have had so many conversations over. And like we don't even race in that game. We just dick around on the tracks.
Yeah. So,
like we crash into each other. We just kind of like make the worst builds of cars as we can.
Build the slowest cars possible.
Yeah.
And then smash into them with like pickup trucks. To elaborate further, it was like that for a long time up until recently when we started this podcast. And now we can just kind of hop on Discord whenever we need to like talk about something. But Gran Turismo was just a game you could put on, not have to worry about anything, just focus in on the conversation and just mindlessly play. My personal history with Gran Turismo is I've played the first few like on, what was it, PlayStation or PlayStation 2, but I wasn't like super heavy into it until we started playing Gran Turismo 4.
GT3 for me personally was the first jumping off point because it was like one of the very first games we bought when we first got our PS2. Just playing that game and like watching you play whenever you would come over, like I have like so much nostalgia for it. Like Gran Turismo 4 I think is pretty much agreed upon around like all of GT fans as probably one of the best GT games, if not the best GT game. But GT3 specifically for me just has so much like meaning and like nostalgia, and then jump to like GT5. Like I like have a lot of nostalgia for because I played a lot of that with like a lot of my friends who were car guys and I wasn't a car guy. And I learned a lot about cars through GT5 and playing through with them. And then obviously GT7 with you. So
are they on 7? Man, I don't even know which one they're on.
Yeah, this is GT7.
This GT7? Okay, so yeah, GT7 is the one we've been throwing on and just mindlessly playing and talking. When I initially heard they were making a Gran Turismo, actually, I don't even think I heard they were making one. I just happened to see the trailer one day.
This movie flew so under the radar.
Yeah, like, I didn't even know what's happening.
I think the problem with this movie, or like at least this movie just not getting the buzz that it probably should have gotten, because like there's so much to love about this movie before even watching it, right? Like the cast, like you said, there's like really good cast behind it, just on paper.
A surprisingly good cast.
The director, Neil Blomkamp, who's made like some great fucking movies. Like District 9 is like up there as like a movie that I fucking love, you know? But I think what really fucked this movie over was fucking Uncharted coming out. Because Uncharted was so mid. Like it was just not a great adaptation of the game. It just wasn't a great movie altogether. It was, it was okay. I'm not going to say it was terrible.
They didn't come out around the same time though, right? Uncharted came out.
No, it came out before. It came out like a year before.
Yeah.
So, but I think people already don't care for Sony making movies just because the Spider-Man movies that they made prior to like Tom Holland joining the Marvel Disney shit were like kind of just like typical comic book movies. They weren't really pushing anything forward. So not a lot of people were hyped on Sony focusing more on movies going into like, I think 2021, 2022 is when they started pushing this initiative to like really start going more in on like the television stuff. And Uncharted was the first test of that. And it just wasn't great. But since then, they've come out with Gran Turismo. They did the Last of Us TV HBO series. They're working on a God of War series with Amazon. So like, since then, since Uncharted, everything else I feel like has been really fucking good.
This movie just had a lot of things going against it in general. In addition to that, first of all, video game movies typically aren't great. Second of all, not a whole lot of racing movies get you know, any recognition or any interest really. I mean, you can make the argument for maybe, what was it, Ford versus Ferrari?
Ford versus Ferrari.
I think that got some hype. But
there's like
other
a new
than
one that's coming out that actually does look really interesting too.
Right, but other than that,
Ford
at the time, like car movies were what? Fast and Furious. Like the Need for Speed movie looked like ass. Looked like
Need
trash.
for Speed movie's ass. I will say this. Which this movie actually does draw a lot of parallels to this movie, but the Speed Racer movie was like critically panned. Like it did not get.
I know you really liked that,
but the Speed Racer movie is legitimately like actually like a really fun, good movie. Like this movie had a lot going against it. So with that though, you've seen it now. I just finished watching it a second time prior to recording this episode. You could say it was a race to finish. You know, much like sex. Always come in first, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Undefeated.
What did you think about this movie?
So
in terms of just like what Gran Turismo is as a game, and also, actually, let me real quick before you answer that, let me ask you a question. How much of the real story do you know about?
Yeah, I actually did want to bring that up. So I went the opposite approach with this movie than I did with the Iron Claw. With the Iron Claw, I made an effort to kind of research the Von Erich family before I watched the movie. So that I had an idea of what I was getting into. And the previous podcast I mentioned like, oh, I wonder if, you know, the Iron Claw would have been a lot different for me if I didn't know anything going into it. So that being said, I went into this movie completely blind, did not look it up at all, just watched the movie. And most of my takes in this podcast about this movie will be from the perspective of just the movie, nothing from the real story, just what I saw in the movie and what the movie presented to me, and how I felt about it. Didn't even know this was a thing that they started like a GT Academy.
I understand why, because it draws people in whenever they see this type of shit. But like, so when I first saw the trailer for this movie, because when I first heard about it, the biggest thing for me was like, how do you make that? Right? Like, what even is that? With other video games movies, you can kind of conceptualize, okay, they'll probably follow the story or whatever, but Gran Turismo doesn't have a story if you just play the games. So like, I was super curious how they even do that. Then the trailer comes out and I see, oh, this is about someone that plays the game, but then actually races in real life. And then it's like based on a true story. I'm like, what the fuck? Like this actually happens? So like, I actually did go into watching the movie knowing what the true story was, because after seeing the trailer, I had to look it up, you know? I was just so baffled at how someone can make a based on a true story movie about Gran Turismo, going off of what I knew about Gran Turismo at the time. I am very curious how I would have reacted if I hadn't known the true story, like much like how you were about Iron Claw. But I think it kind of also gave me a deeper appreciation for the movie when watching it, because there were certain things that I knew that the movie was referencing or showing that I was like, oh, fuck, like that's super fucking cool. Before we get into like the why and the how, like, let's just start with you, Matt, because you are the fresh perspective on this. This is my second time watching it. What did you think about the movie?
The fact that it's a true story kind of helps this movie out. If you at least know that it's based on a true story. If you don't know the whole story, that's fine. But if you know it's a true story, it kind of helps it out, because the premise, like just the whole thing is unbelievable. And it doesn't really make sense. Like it just doesn't compute. It's insane is what it is. Having that knowledge in mind kind of helped me forgive a lot of things I would have knocked this movie on hard. I will say this, it took a really long time for me to get into it. There's elements that kind of like I couldn't get out of my mind. One thing I do appreciate is that it's so fucking meta. Like it opens with a fucking commercial of Gran Turismo. By the way, this whole movie is just Sony and Gran Turismo just stroking each other, just be like, oh, dude, oh, you're so cool. You're so
fucking
cool.
Hard,
yeah.
Dude.
This whole thing is a fucking advertisement. It's like,
you want to talk about the rims being glazed? Our faces were being glazed by all of the glazing that Sony was doing with each.
I don't know how this episode always comes up, but again, in our Spirited podcast, you mentioned, doesn't this feel like a Target ad? This whole movie felt like a fucking Sony ad. It was insane.
1000%.
It was insane.
I agree with you.
But there were things like right off the bat that kind of threw me off. So the commercial I thought was funny because Gran Turismo does make you sit through like a fucking movie before you even get to play the game. So I'm like, okay, kudos, you got me there.
Yes.
But a lot of the dialogue was super corny in the beginning. Like I'm talking like Disney Channel movie levels of corny. And then there was like one of the opening songs was just such a YouTube song, like fucking Casey Neistat level shit.
It screams like what you call that? One of those like what's it called? The license free music, royalty free music. It screams royalty free music. Yeah.
So that kind of took me out of it. And then a lot of the dialogue was just like so like gamer specific that it just was like super fucking like cringe to me.
There is one instance in the movie where that works. I mean, I'll just say because it's not super important, but like when there's parts in the movie where the pit crew lead like is tossing it back to him, and like it's corny, but it's also so funny because you know he's doing it to antagonize him.
Yeah.
Where he's like that was a good first try, noob, or whatever. Like those are when it's like acceptable. But I know what you're talking about. It's like we're gamers, so we talk like this,
or like the fucking
you got to get over your fam. Like
no,
like it's like
so
okay,
like okay.
Right.
There's a couple lines in particular that just really just made me go like groan and just like ugh. Like one of them was when he's gonna race his friend online, right, or some guy online, and his friend's on the mic, and he hears his dad bitch at him, and he goes, "Oh, your dad really doesn't understand your lifestyle." But like, bro, what fucking lifestyle?
Right? There's no lifestyle. You're a fucking loser right now.
Yeah. And then like when he goes to that gaming cafe, and
look, let me tell you right now, like if you watch this movie, there is no gaming cafe that looks like this.
Dude, I don't know
if it. Yeah, what the fuck?
I don't know what the fuck that was because there was like literally just all GT like stations. Like what?
It is a GT only gaming cafe, which there is no money. That's bad business.
So it's a GT only gaming cafe, but then the fucking dude who owns it goes, "Oh yeah, that's what I like to hear, the sound of like keyboards clicking and blah blah blah." Like, bro,
no keyboards being clicked
like
at
what?
All. I think maybe there's like one person playing like Uncharted in the background that you can spot, but like other than that, I didn't see anything else.
Yeah, me neither. So that's why I was like, what the fuck? And also like when the way he got his invitation to compete.
Okay. We're getting too deep. Like I have those gripes too, but like let's just keep going with your overarching idea. But yes, I agree with you. That is we'll get into it.
Okay.
We'll get into it.
So overall, I think my opinion is pretty similar to like everyone who's watched this movie. Was like not as bad as I expected it to be. Yeah, right. Surprisingly good, although that might be a bit strong for me personally. But I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Once you get past the setup to the academy and him passing and then going on to be a racer, it's fine from there. But that first part is kind of, you kind of got to like forgive it and just try to keep watching.
For me, like, let's just go out and say it. Like, I love this movie. Like I really did love this movie. Like I enjoyed it. I had a really good time with it. You know, it's not trying to be anything more than what it advertised itself to be, which was a summer popcorn flick, essentially. That sets my expectations and I enjoyed it for what it was. I don't know what people's idea of what I like or my taste is with so far, but I feel like I can maybe come off as a little pretentious sometimes, based on like me liking like really artsy movies or whatever. But like, no, I can appreciate movies for being what they are, you know, being, you know, what it is. It's just, there's certain lines I cross, like with the Spirited one, I feel like it was pretending to be something that it actually wasn't. That's where I drew the line. If something just kind of embraces what it is and just goes for it in that genre, then like, I think I'm mostly for the most part, I'm fine. And I think this movie does that. I love this movie a lot. I really enjoy it. I super hardcore do agree with you that this movie has its flaws, and a lot of those flaws exist in the beginning of the movie, the setup. A lot of the setup. Like, so just to kind of piggyback off of like some of the things you kind of hinted at, for me, there's like so many things that like just do not make sense. Like how the invitations are delivered, completely stupid. Could have just been an email.
Exactly.
So this movie, and you know, tell me if you agree with me or not, this movie does so much in the beginning, especially. Like there's certain things you forgive later on in the movie because that's just movies. Yeah, that's what a movie is. But the beginning especially does manufacture drama that is completely unnecessary. Yeah, so unnecessary. So to list some examples, I think the manufactured drama of the car chase from the police is completely unnecessary.
I do have a few thoughts on that.
Yeah, that doesn't need to be in my opinion, that doesn't need to be in the movie. The manufactured drama of him like racing to make it to the race, the GT race online at the gaming cafe, that doesn't need to fucking happen. The manufactured drama of the love interest doesn't need to happen.
One of my
she's already into you. You can fucking tell the minute they talk that she's already into you. So the love interest altogether does not need to exist.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want to get further into that, or I want to delve deeper into that because I have so many thoughts on that.
And so here's the thing with me, like the drama that they should have focused on, they honestly don't do enough of. So like, for example, the rift between his father and him, the father honestly doesn't even play that big of a part. He wasn't a fucking factor at all in the movie.
Yeah.
There's the little bit of resistance that exists at the beginning of the movie, but then after that, he doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Like at all.
They don't even show him like changing his feelings on it. He just kind of shows up and is just like, yeah, that's my son or whatever.
One thing that I really wish the movie did do was if they just removed all of those manufactured drama that is like super inconsequential, you know, like that doesn't fucking matter. They could have easily filled that with more time developing him and his dad's relationship, making it actually matter, then more time showing the game process. Because there actually, even though this is a Gran Turismo movie, there actually is very little Gran Turismo in this movie. And like, I understand it's a video game, you know, you can only make it so interesting, him playing the video game. But I feel like if they had shot that race scene of him racing in the game, kind of like how they shoot the actual race scenes, even though it's simulated, if they had given it that much love and attention, they probably actually could have made it really interesting and hammered home the fact that like, this is a guy that knows this shit, that is capable of this shit through the video game. Because that's the big thing, is that the whole thing is that he's a person that knows this game like the back of his hand and is able to translate that into racing actual cars. So I feel like they should have done a better job at hammering home the game aspect of it, because that is huge. That is the foundation of this movie, is the fact that he's only ever known the game. So you should probably develop that aspect of it more.
Are we going to start going into like the deeper things now? Okay. I want to give this movie some props first before I kind of delve into my criticisms. I thought most, not all, but most of the game elements that they integrated into the movie was pretty good.
I think I know what isn't a part of that most, but I agree with you. Yes, the game elements were so good. Like, especially the sound effects that they use.
Yes,
like taking the sound effects from the game.
So that's one of the things I liked was the sound effects from the game. Thought was really well done. There was an establishing shot of Jann's house that looks exactly like a backdrop in photo mode. I was like, oh, that's fucking photo mode right there. Yeah. The location titles, very GT. So really liked that. Yeah. The overlays were okay-ish. I understand they want to make cool imagery with like the car overlays and shit like that. The only one that I kind of appreciated was when they set it up and then they call it back. So when he's doing the initial like qualifying race, that's when it overlays into like the Nissan GTR. And then at the end of the movie, when he's in Le Mans and he's like, you know, doing his thing, it overlays into like his bedroom. So I'm like, okay, cool. That's a cool little moment. Sure. The one that really fucking pissed me off was during the cop evasion scene where it just says like cop evaded. I'm like, what the fuck is that? This isn't Grand Theft Auto. This isn't Need for Speed Underground. What the fuck is that?
Yeah. So here's where this movie fucks up, right? It's big. Like, to me, this is kind of a big fuck up because your movie is Gran Turismo.
Yes.
Your movie is based on an existing game property that already has assets that you could pull from. Why? So like the cop scene doesn't, first of all, in my opinion is that the cop scene doesn't even need to be in there at all.
It doesn't even, okay, we'll get into that, but.
Yeah. The cop scene doesn't even need to be in there at all, in my opinion. But on top of that, you pull this bullshit where you add a video gamey effect, a video gamey overlay to something that isn't even in the video game.
Yeah.
So why does it even need to be like an overlay? Like, why does it need to be there? Like, what does it say? Like mission accomplished or something, and then it says
some
cop
bullshit
avoided.
like that. Yeah,
Cop avoided. It says like cop avoided, and then it says like mission accomplished or something.
Yeah.
Like in the same shitty font.
Yeah,
And
same
it's like,
shitty graphic.
That's nowhere. That has nothing to do with GT. That's not in the game. You don't do that. Like it, you know, like the style, even the style that you're displaying doesn't match the GT aesthetic.
It looked like a fucking mobile game. Fucking overlay. It looks like a
fucking mobile game. You know, like it's just bad. It's just like such a weird fucking choice because your whole thing is like imitating the video game and showing aspects of the video game and how it applies to his real life, and you do something that doesn't exist in the game. Like, it would have been sicker if you did something where like the chase is happening and he sees like a line, you know, and he like follows a line, because it's not unlike for him to like see a line in driving the streets because he lives here. It could be assumed that he knows these streets really well because he's from this town. So it's not unlike him to like know like what's the best line to take in the city, you know?
So I guess we'll just kind of go into some things that kind of I had issues with. Again, this is a movie where you have to remind yourself that this is a true story.
real quick, can I share some of my positives for this movie?
Yeah, of course. Sorry about that. Yeah, go ahead.
So other than what you said, because I agree with you, the sound design is really well done. I think.
The racing scenes for the most part were good too.
The fucking racing scenes I thought were awesome. Like I thought the way they filmed them were really good. Okay, so I will say this: there are some parts where it doesn't display the sense of speed as well as some other parts, but for the most part, the sense of speed is really well done. I like the overlay scenes where like it breaks apart the car and shows him in his room. I thought that was really awesome. The relationship between him and David Harbour's character, I thought was really well done for how they handled it. Like way better than the one between him and his dad. I thought that was.
I have a theory on why they didn't go so hard on that.
Sure. I thought the rivalry, even though and we'll get into this, even though it wasn't real, it's not accurate. I thought the movie rivalry between him and the Kappa was pretty well done for the most part. You know, he didn't have like a lot of depth to him, but he served the purpose that he needed to serve. And I thought that was fine. And just the use of the cinematography, like I thought was really well done specifically for the races. Like I just loved how they filmed the races in this movie. And I think it definitely builds a lot of emotion. There's one more big plus I gotta give this movie, but I'll talk about that when we actually talk about this part of the movie, because it is probably the most pivotal part of the movie, and I'm sure you already kind of know what I'm thinking. When we go to it, but like let's go to your negatives now.
Okay, so real quick, I just want to touch on the dad relationship and maybe why it wasn't as fleshed out. Again, we have to remember this is a true story. Yes, this is a movie about Gran Turismo and kind of what they did, like this kind of like marketing thing they did. But from what I've read after I watched the movie, his dad in real life. So this is the Jann Mardenborough story, essentially, right? It's marketed as a GT movie, but the true story aspect is his story. And from what I can gather, from what I read, his dad wasn't unsupportive. It's just that they couldn't afford to help him progress in that career or even get started. So maybe that's why they didn't want to go too hard into like, oh, he really wasn't supportive or blah, blah, blah. Because if you're telling this kid's story and his dad wasn't like that, you kind of want to like walk that line.
Well, here's the thing. Here's my problem with that though, right? It's like you're already manufacturing drama that also wasn't real either for other things. That I feel like if you're going to manufacture drama, it at least needs to serve the story. Like manufacturing drama is normal, right? Every based on a true story movie cuts corners or like plays with the truth or just manufactures straight bullshit, right? And we let it go as long as it serves the movie. You know, does it make a better movie with it there? The shit that they made up that is there is like it doesn't add to the movie. Like the
To
girlfriend
me,
really
well,
doesn't
yeah,
do
we
anything
can we
for the
can
movie.
talk about that, but
The car chase, I think, doesn't really do anything for the movie. None of those do anything for the movie. The dad relationship is actually one of the more interesting things because he was so against him doing this or so like on him for having like a real life.
This is where the movie is super flawed, right? So not only that aspect where the dad wasn't supportive of him, because so let me just say, like, they probably didn't want to. So manufacturing drama, you're gonna do, sure,
yeah,
but they probably didn't want to do anything to slander his dad in any way, right? And maybe Jann had some say in that as well, like, oh, kind of make him like hesitant, but not like, oh, like you're wasting your life. Walk that line, because if you're manufacturing like the rivalry, that serves into the movie, into the racing aspect of it, right? So that kind of has a purpose in there. The girlfriend thing, I completely agree with you. I want to talk about that. That was super fucking stupid, but that's just my logic for them doing that. Hold on.
So here's the thing. No, go ahead. Go ahead. My bad.
So moving on from that point, because I think that's a very small thing. This movie does a poor job of again, the setup, because it's like his whole thing for being a racer is, I play this game really good.
Yeah.
And anyone in real life, if they wanted to do something, you know, racing related, you think there'd be more real driving experience, right? For this character. They never once tell you that he has any sort of real driving experience or that he's even made an effort to attempt to even do like real driving experience. So when they set up that car chase scene, right, or the cop evasion scene, I was confused at what they were trying to establish. Are they trying to establish that, oh, he can drive, or that he's still kind of green at driving? Either way, it didn't make any sense. If it didn't translate. Yeah, it didn't translate, because if you're showing me that he's good at driving, he doesn't really seem like he's good at driving. A movie that showed someone knowing their surroundings and being a really good driver was Drive. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
The opening scene in that movie is fucking incredible. That's how you show that someone can drive, especially if it's in their own city. I don't want to ruin it for you. He basically is a getaway driver for criminals, and the first scene in that movie is him evading the cops. And not just like speeding away, but like doing clever little things because he knows his area. If the cop evasion scene in Gran Turismo was trying to do that, they failed. If they tried to show that he's green at driving, well then again, this is where you remind yourself, this is a true story. This actually happened, because this makes no fucking sense.
Which doesn't actually help this movie, because that part isn't real.
Right.
So this is one of those things where, what I was going to say earlier, before I accidentally cut you off, but like, this is one of those situations where the actual real life story, I think, is actually more interesting and captivating than what they tried to do in the movie to make it seem more interesting. So the actual story, like, and maybe I remember seeing this, but from what I recall, I think he actually didn't even have his license initially until he got the invitation. He did the thing, and then he's like, "Oh fuck! I can't get there, or how am I going to get there?" And then he got his license. Like, he actually didn't really have that much driving experience, like real driving experience.
That would have been a lot better.
So to my point, right? Like, if that's the actual true story, cut that out altogether, because it's not necessary, and show him playing the game more and show more drama for that, because that actually is probably closer to the truth, and it actually serves a purpose because it is showing more of the game that the movie is taking its namesake from, you know? And you could find a way to film that and make it interesting. You know what I'm saying? This scene doesn't do anything, because one, it has the stupid overlays, and then two, it's like, it's so inconsequential.
It establishes nothing.
It establishes nothing, you know, except for, he has some driving skill that will later come in handy when he actually driving. But like, we can believe that just from him driving good in the game. But because the whole point of the story is that he's good at the game, and that can translate to actual driving.
But even then, like, when they leave to go to their meetup, and they're pushing the car, and he gets in. His brother is giving him instructions on how to drive. He's like, "Oh, drop the clutch, right?"
No, it's the other way. It's the other way. It's his brother is the one driving, and he's like pissed off because his brother wants to drive when he thinks he's clearly a better driver. And then he's telling him like, "I thought you knew how to drive. Like, do the clutch. Like what are you doing?"
Okay, maybe I misinterpreted that.
That drives.
Yeah. But anyways, so again, going with that scene, that's where you get introduced to the love interest, which again, this fucking movie, who wrote the dialogue to this movie? It has to be some sort of fucking boomer or some sort of fucking elder millennial, because they do the whole thing where they're talking, right? And then at the end of it, she goes, "Oh, fucking DM me sometime." I'm like, what the? If you guys know each other in real life and you guys are clearly into each other, wouldn't you already have her fucking number?
Yeah. It's just so stupid because it's
just buzzwords.
So clear.
DM me.
It's so clear that she likes him, and it's so clear that he likes her. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any fucking sense to go through all of this nonsense. And it's not even it's not important to the story that they're trying to tell. They're just doing it because
they need
Hollywood
this element
seems to
of
think
this
that
movie.
there needs to be an element of love.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So that was really fucking
That's
dumb.
not true. This movie could have been purely just about racing, and it would have accomplished even more. You know, I feel like there's movies that have already proven that. There doesn't need to be a love interest. There doesn't need to be all these typical things that us smooth-brained people think we want to see in movies. It could just be a movie that is strictly about this thing. And that's fine. We can live with that. You know, if there's one thing I hate, it's movies that take their audience for simpletons. You guys have to have this. Otherwise, this movie isn't appealing to you. We need to have a love interest. We need to have really stupid random drama. We need to have that because you want that and you don't know that you want. No, people know what they want. And all people want is a good story and it told in a competent way. And you can do that. You don't need to have these things because there's plenty of movies that have these things that suck, that don't do well. So clearly it's not that. And luckily for this movie, even though it has that shit, it also does tell an interesting, competent story that we are able to forgive those things for, and we can still enjoy this movie because this movie does have a pretty high audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 98%.
It's also got a 7 point something on IMDb, which is pretty fucking high. Higher than I thought.
So clearly this movie did do a lot of things right. It probably could have been higher if they just cut out all that bullshit.
Continuing on my criticisms, it really is mostly just this first half. I guess we can go back to the father-son relationship. I don't understand why it was a secret that he got invited to do this.
His dad is bitching the whole time about you're not doing this. Isn't going to result in anything real.
And then the realest thing,
lo and behold, here it is, something real.
Yeah, and he feels the need to hide it. And I'm just all right, I don't know, man. That was such a weird fucking choice. I don't you said, the manufactured drama just doesn't make any fucking sense in this movie. It doesn't.
It's so bad. It really is bad. I'm not cutting any corners here. It's bad. And there's even to break it down to an even more minuscule level, there's a part where the whole reason he starts the cop evasion scene is because I'm not gonna miss my fucking race tomorrow. I'm not gonna miss my race tomorrow. I have to evade the police because I refuse to miss this race. Which, okay, fine, sure. But then the movie contradicts itself, where when they arrive home, the dad's awake and he's waiting on the car, and they're like, "Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck," and then he's like, "I will take the blame if you say I'm a better racer than you." Motherfucker, if you take the blame, that is increasing the opportunity for you to miss your race, which you literally just ran away from the cops for, which I don't know if you know this is way worse than getting yelled at by your dad.
So in defense of that whole thing, it could just be taking blame for the mirror getting swiped. Now, don't go too deep into this because then I'm sure you'll be like, well, wouldn't he question what happened? Blah blah blah. Let's just say that he's taking the blame for the mirror.
But even that, couldn't you agree
No,
that
absolutely.
even if it was just the mirror,
Yeah.
like taking the blame for anything still decreases the chances that he makes the race because his dad could just be like, "You're grounded."
Well, even then, like him going out in the first place doesn't make any sense because he knows how important this is. He knows this is his big shot. And what does he give it up for? A fucking girl who he doesn't even have his number, like her number.
To be fair, here's the thing though, like that I'm more willing to forgive because men do stupid shit all the time for pussy.
No,
like
but
that's
the fact. What are they establishing? Are they friends or are they like strangers? Because they clearly have talked to each other.
Yeah,
right. They follow each other on social media.
She asked him like, so why are you so obsessed with the game? So she knows him well enough to know that he's like super obsessed with this game.
Yeah. Do you not have her phone number? Do people just not call or text each other in fucking England? Like, what the fuck? I don't know. It's just the relationship wasn't believable to me at all. It was pointless. And even when she shows up later, first of all, I don't even think they had chemistry. Like, I wasn't. There was no chemistry there whatsoever.
It was non-existent.
It was non-existent. And then when she shows up, it's just.
Even David Harbour had more chemistry.
Yeah. And then like again, when you see him kind of longing for her, again, he's just on her fucking page. It's like, dude, just fucking text her. Like, I don't know. It's just so fucking weird. Like,
the stakes are so low and they try to make it seem like they're so high.
Exactly. Like, fucking get rid of that shit. That shit was so stupid.
Another thing too, like that this movie, like it's weird because this is a story that's from like 2013.
Yeah, so it's not.
This is a 2012 story that they're trying to tell in 2023.
So 10 years later.
Know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's things that they do, like, where it's like, it's a PS5, where I think in real life, it was like a PS3.
Which,
you know,
fine. If they want to, like, set it in modern times, I could forgive that, right? That's totally whatever. Like, that's the least of my worries.
But then it's like, there's like little things that they do, though, that date it to like, well, this would make way more sense in 2013. So, for example, a big thing with David Harbour's character is that he likes to listen to music on a Walkman.
That's like something I was going to point out.
Walkman. So then in Japan, in the year of our Lord, 2023, he finds like a digital Sony Walkman, which by today's standards are obsolete. Nobody fucking buys that shit.
It's like I fucking told you. This is a fucking Sony ad, dude.
It's actually like hard to find those, like unless you're buying them from eBay. Maybe on Amazon they have them. I don't fucking know.
The fucking thing.
It's like phones exist. It's 2023 in this timeline. It's 2023. He probably has a smartphone.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure
he can just play music off of that.
Yeah, when he walked out of Team Kappa, I'm pretty sure he called on a fucking smartphone. It wasn't a fucking flip phone,
which can play music. So you getting the most modern version of a Walkman still does not make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense at all. One thing that did really bother me, so I would describe myself as a diet car enthusiast, where I'm not a gearhead. I don't know all the fucking engine terms and parts and what mods you should do and blah, blah, blah. But I do appreciate cars, and I do think I have more knowledge on cars than your average consumer.
Than the normie. Yeah.
The fact that they get to the GT Academy and they put these guys who have no real racing experience, sure, they might have their driver's license, for sure. The fact that they just throw them into a Nissan GTR, fucking 100,000 plus car with 600 horsepower. You're just going to throw these kids into these things and expect them to do racing maneuvers. Like, start them off in a fucking Nissan 370Z. Something that is of that nature, but not the fucking highest level. What the fuck?
Wait, well, so I actually do have a question though. Like, so in regards to that, right? Because like that didn't bother me as much. Like, do you know what they actually raced? Like, what they actually drove?
Yes, because I did check, and they were 370Zs, which
370s
makes sense because I don't even we're talking about how they manufactured the drama because that's movie beats, right? That's what you need to hit. I don't think this movie knew its fucking audience. It's Gran Turismo. These people who are watching these movies most likely
are going to be car people.
No cars. So the fact that you're throwing these kids and these unexperienced drivers into, again, fucking $100,000 cars with 600 horsepower as your training car is insane to me. That's like, that was like so glaring to me. I understand they look way cooler, and it is way cooler to drive a GTR, but it just doesn't make any sense in a movie that's already so unbelievable. Like, I don't know, that really like peeved me. But yeah, they did actually train in 370Zs, which again makes a lot more sense.
So yeah, I agree with you. Then they probably should have just stuck to that, but maybe they really wanted to push the whole supercar angle, because that is what he ends up driving. But again, like, that just kind of, if you're a car person, that's just kind of what makes the true story more interesting, what they do in the movie. Because in the movie, they start him out with the GTRs, which is like, okay, like, let's just assume that he automatically, magically knows how to drive, can like figures out how to drive this car. And then like, then he graduates to the Team Nissan, like actual like race car. Cool. Wouldn't it be more impressive then, from like a car enthusiast standpoint, to start him out on like what you said, the car, the 370Z, right?
Yeah.
Start him out on that, and then he jumps to like this supercar, which is not, the gap between those two cars is way wider.
Yes.
You know, so it would be way more interesting.
Because the gap between the 370Z and the GTR is pretty significant. We're talking about 300 plus more horsepower. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
Like, and
so
again, $30,000 car versus $100,000 car. Like, what the fuck?
To that point, let me throw this out there, right? So a pivotal point in the movie is when he's racing with David Harbour in his passenger, and then he attempts to make a pass, and then Maddie kind of blocks him, and then he has to kind of decelerate, brake to like avoid crashing, and he isn't able to. And then he basically tries to make the point to David Harbour's character, who doesn't believe him initially, that like, hey, like, I tried to brake, I did, but the brakes are glazed. Glazed brakes basically means that the brake pads like are so overheated that they start to harden to a point where like it's almost like glass. I'm maybe not explaining it the best way. I'm not a car person. Forgive me. This is just what I read up on.
I think it's like smooth, so there's not enough friction.
Smooths over, so there's not as much friction, so they don't work as effectively. Essentially, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a fucking car person, nor am I like that hardcore of a Gran Turismo player. I don't have the fucking steering wheel to brake. Is that something that Gran Turismo is able to simulate?
I don't know.
Does it simulate that?
I have no idea.
Because like, that doesn't make it, like, I would imagine, and this is just me, I would imagine that that's very hard for a video game to simulate accurately.
Here's where I'll kind of give it some defense. I personally have never played those endurance races where that might actually be a factor, where the brakes wear. Yeah. So it very well could, but that's a game mode I never played, or a race type I never did. We were very casual. GT
1000%. We're super casual.
We were very casual.
That's one of the unbelievable aspects to me. Is the game really that good where it'll simulate this thing that can seemingly happen freakily, right? Because David Harbour doesn't believe him. So that leads me to believe, narrative-wise at least, that leads me to believe that this is something that can just happen, like a freak thing. You know, it's not predictable.
I feel like you would have been able to feel that before it completely glazed over. Yeah. Like, you would have been able to like, hey, this isn't responding as well, especially with David Harbour, the fucking gearhead in the passenger seat with him. Like, hey, your braking is kind of weird.
Like, would he be able to feel that in the passenger, being as in tune with cars as he is, right?
That's what I would assume, yeah.
So yeah, so those are some things that we like, some gripes we have in the movie. Like, I want to kind of go back to like things we liked about the movie.
Okay.
And I want to use this as an opportunity to talk about like the pivotal moment in the movie. Like, I do think this movie does do a good job of like incorporating like some real life aspects of the movie into it. At the beginning of the movie, it shows like stuff like, you know, shots of his room, and it makes it like a plot point. But there's a particular photo that it shows of him as a kid next to like a Ferrari. Little cool detail about that. Maybe you knew this already because you looked it up, or maybe you don't. That's the actual photo of the actual Jann Mardenborough.
Yeah, I think they used it in like the credits, I think, or at the very end of the movie, like in one of the end montages.
Yeah, that's a real photo of the actual person that the movie's based on, which I thought was like a really nice touch.
Did you like really did you like the sticker that was like game life or something?
That was stupid. That was corny. Did not need to be there. It's so funny that the people that make games do not understand gamers. Like, yes, there are some corny ass gamers out there, but most gamers aren't as corny as the media makes them out to be. You know, like gamers don't walk around with like the Walmart t-shirts that say, I pause my game to be here. You know, like that's just not accurate. You know, like we're just not that corny, you know, but you know, people like for some reason, the people that fucking make video games want to try to make us out to be like that.
I think it's just a thing again of like, they didn't know what they wanted to do with this movie. Did they want to make a good racing movie? Did they want to make the Jann story movie? Did they want to make a movie for gamers? Did they want to make a movie for car people? Like, it's just kind of all over the place. They could have used like some more focus, I think.
The actual Jann Mardenborough being his own stunt driver, I thought was fucking awesome, dude. That was so fucking cool. And you don't learn that until the end of the movie, obviously. Yeah. That like already was like, holy fuck, that's fucking tight, dude. That's so cool. I love that this movie doesn't place a hard emphasis on getting first place, because that's not true to the story and that's just not real life. Like, you don't always win. This movie places very real emphasis on them just podium, like just making the podium,
which I
appreciated that.
I could appreciate that too, but I do have a gripe on how they handled a lot of that. Is there was so much overuse of the photo finish of, oh, you just barely made it for once. Can we get a convincing win where he doesn't need to be first, but at least, you know, gap the fucking dude, right?
So, well, maybe not gap, but like they at least did that in the final race where he did win by a considerable amount. It wasn't like a photo finish, like in typical movie terms. So I was at least like cool, like it's definitive. He won. Going back to like what I hate about the movie, like the manufactured drama. The fucking manufactured drama of him barely beating Maddie in the race at the GT Academy final, and then them going back and forth like, listen, Maddie's better on the mic, so like maybe we should just say that he like, this is so stupid. We know he wins. Otherwise, there's not a movie. Like, this doesn't need to be here. Just let him win and let's get to the better parts of the movie. You know, like this is so stupid. A movie that I constantly think about when watching this movie that I kind of compare it in my mind to is Top Gun Maverick, because they both have that same type of feel where it's like it starts out with like a class and them like just going through the rigors of like learning something, and then it culminates in like a real life test of what they've learned throughout the movie. Top Gun Maverick to me is a way far superior movie that does everything better, but to me, they both have like the similar vibe, and I feel like I enjoy both movies because of how they go about this whole process. It's just, for me, the thing that Top Gun Maverick does better that this movie doesn't is that it handles those moments better, where Top Gun Maverick doesn't manufacture drama the same way that this movie does, for the sake of just, we're not going to enjoy this movie unless it has this stupid shit. Whereas Top Gun Maverick just treats us like adults. It fucking just handles the drama that does exist as it exists, and it goes about its day, you know?
Speaking of like just manufactured drama and Maddie, I cannot believe they found a way to add in the typical villain trope of eating a fucking apple. Because he comes in eating a fucking apple, talking shit. I'm like, really?
And he doesn't even finish it. The fucking asshole.
Like, the only thing that would have made it 10 times better and more hilarious is if he had the fucking knife and he was cutting the slices while doing that shit. I just wish there was more scenes where he won convincingly. I understand you want to paint him out as this underdog
story,
but you also want to kind of paint him as a prodigy, right? Like someone who just he's that fucking 1% of people who are just gifted. I do appreciate how they reordered the races.
Yes. So, like, for anybody that doesn't know, but you've seen the movie, they play with the timeline a little bit.
A lot, kind of, actually.
A lot of, but like, so For one, the biggest change that they made was switching the final race and the turning point race, right? So the turning point race, which we'll talk about more because I have some things to say about it, is Nuremberg and whatever.
Nürburgring.
Yeah. And Le Mans, the final race, the climax. So in the actual real life version of this story, those are switched. Like he actually does Le Mans before by the time Nuremberg, I'm just going to call it Nuremberg. I know that's not how it's spelled, so it's probably pronounced a little bit differently. But I'm just, for the sake of just conversation, I'm just going to call it Nuremberg. Nuremberg actually happens well into his racing career. Like he's already like an established racer by Nuremberg.
And I also believe he did a 24-hour race before Le Mans as well. Like that's actually one of like his first races, I think. It was like something along the lines of like a 24-hour race.
When watching the movie the second time, Janice was kind of coming in and out while I was watching it. She was asking me, like, was that really like a thing with Nuremberg where like it affected him like that much or whatever? And I told her like, well, no, because at that point he was already an established racer, so that wouldn't have been a thing. Like him being a gamer was like so far out of the question at this point. He was like already Team Nissan, and it was a different car. Like he was at this point in his career, I believe he was already racing Formula One, which he had made the switch to. Yeah. The timeline gets played with a little bit, but you feel like that was to its benefit. Yes. I agree with you. For movie purposes, it builds the plot very well.
Yeah. And also, I don't think a lot of people who did watch this movie as like a popcorn flick will understand.
They're not going to care.
They're not going to care, and they're not going to understand. Like a 24-hour race sounds way more intense than any of the other races he was doing. So of course it makes sense to put that last in the movie because it seems like a bigger accomplishment, right? Like you see that and you're like, oh fuck, that's crazy.
And it also gives a really good like cathartic moment because it pulls Maddie and the other guy into the race. So like these guys that he was like competing against early on in the movie are now his allies, and it's like it's really nice moment, you know, for the movie. That's also a really cool thing I appreciate about the movie is that actually like not Le Mans specifically, but he did team up with other racers that were with him at GT Academy. Okay, so like let's talk about it. The pivotal moment of this movie, I think, the biggest moment of this movie. So at Nuremberg, he gets to a part of the course where it's known as like a very like an airlift part of the course where like cars take flight partially. But because of the wind conditions at the time of the race, like it lifts his car so much that he ends up flying into the stands and killing someone. I thought this scene was done so fucking well. I thought the way they handled it was very well done. I loved it. If you watch the actual crash,
it's pretty much
it is
shot for shot.
It is spot on. Yeah. They nailed it. And the immediacy of it. So like how it plays out in the movie is it starts out with basically in slow motion, showing him start to lift off the ground and like it happening. And then it cuts to like a real time, fast as fuck, like him just lifting up and crashing. It's like it's almost like a Final Destination type of shot where you just see the death just fucking hit you. Yeah. And it's meant to like catch you off guard.
And it looks so unnatural. It looks so unnatural,
but it is actually how it happened, and it's breathtaking.
I actually remember seeing that crash when it happened on Reddit. It made the Reddit front page, I believe. And I didn't know anything about who was driving. I didn't care. All I saw was some fucking crazy ass crash. So when I saw it in the movie, I was like, oh shit. And then I look up the real footage, like, oh, I've seen this. Like, I saw this crash.
Yeah. In fucking insane.
Yeah.
The way they handled that like whole scene I thought was just fucking phenomenal. Like it was so well done and like tragic. Super tragic. And you know, and like very tasteful of them to not show anybody being killed, you know, respectful to the person that actually died in the actual event. Like I think, you know, no one needs to go see that. You know, it's not important. You know, what's important is his comeback from it. Because that is such a hard thing to do, is knowing that you took a life and making the choice to continue on. And to follow that up, I thought the scene of him finding out the hospital was really well done. the scene between him and David Harbour, where David takes him to the spot where he flew off the track and makes him finish the rest of the race.
Dude, and they pull up
I
in
was just
that
like,
fucking Porsche GTR. Oh my god, that's
it's like, so good. It takes my breath away watching it because it's just so accurate to what the actual crash looked like, and then just the way they handle it is just like so like, oh my god, like that is fucking terrifying.
I do want to talk about David Harbour's character in this movie. You can argue that this is what David Harbour does best, or like he's typecasted, but man, he
seems
does
like
it
he's just
so
playing himself,
good.
you know, right?
Yeah, but he just does it so good. He's always playing this kind of disgruntled older man, but the one thing he does really well is he forms chemistry with the actors. So you believe the relationship. He did that in Stranger Things, and he did that in this movie for sure. Where you just kind of feel like, yeah, there is a bond there. He makes it believable, even though it's like, oh, he's doing the same thing again. It's not like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who you see him do his thing, and you're just like, okay. You know what I mean? It's just,
there's actual, like, even though he's doing the same thing again, there's like substance to what he's doing.
Yeah.
You know,
and there's
adds
nuances.
to the movie, whereas Dwayne is just doing what he does because it sells tickets and it's just what people come to see. So in that sense, we are the smooth brain fucking like we're gonna buy into this shit audience. But like what David Harbour does, like, yes, he is kind of typecasted, and like when I watch this, I just see him playing himself essentially.
Yeah.
Like it works in this context. Like it works. And as long as you're choosing the correct roles, like it can work, you know, and that's what he's doing.
I like how they made Danny almost seem like he was kind of morally gray. Like you weren't really sure, like, is this guy fully on board? Is this guy just, you know?
I enjoyed his character a lot.
Yeah.
Like I thought his character was fun.
Because they could have made him super one-dimensional. It honestly, it surprised me how little he was in the movie after the pitch. I thought he would be more involved in the movie, but he's just kind of there, which was interesting.
But when he is there though, I think it's great. Like, so there's the part of him like being like, oh, listen, from a marketing standpoint, Maddie's better. Like, just say Maddie. Like, okay, it's like, okay, scumbag. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
But then like, there's other parts of the movie that show the more human side of him, where he's not thinking with his marketing brain, where it's like, hey, go like, he's telling,
go with your fake girlfriend and
he's telling Jann to go enjoy the city. It's like, or like when they're having the conversation at the bar, it's like, look, they're gonna fucking they're trying to like start like a social media fire against us, but like this is how we're gonna fucking get them back. And it's like the marketing brain all over again, but this time it's in favor of Jann. That's like, yeah, Orlando, fucking do that shit. His character has the potential to be super eye rolly, just super cringe, just like, here we go again, typical, like this type of character we've seen before a million times. But I think what Orlando does with it and the way they write him, I think it works in this scenario. Like, I think it's like, it's fun. It isn't super like, what's the word? Typical, you know? It does enough where it's like, okay, like I can get behind this character.
Oh, you know what? This just randomly came to my brain. You know what I thought was a weird detail that they really put some effort into showing was when Jann made it to the gaming cafe to do his qualifying race, and it zooms in on him. It's like a fucking shot of him just taking off his shoes to get in the fucking seat. I'm like, they never established like that's how he feels comfortable playing, or like that's his thing that helps him get in the zone. It's just
which is funny because like I thought
thing.
Here's the thing. I thought of that as like he's in a gaming cafe and they don't want people like putting their shoes on their equipment. That's how I took it. So I don't know, right? Who's to say? But it could be that. It could be what you said. It's just how he gets in the zone.
But they make an effort to, in one of the shots where he's doing the race and it starts doing the car overlay, there's literally one fucking shoe right next to him. Like they emphasize that he took off his shoe. I'm like, is that a fucking thing that real life Jann did? Like, is that like something that like helped him get in the zone? Like, I don't understand what that was. Honestly, you lost some seconds doing that, bro. Like, I don't know. That was such a weird thing.
So because he lost seconds doing it, that's why I think it's like that's like the rules of the gaming cafe. Like that's what I read it as. That's what I interpreted.
But you would think because the owner is like his boy and he's just so hyped for him. He's like, no, fuck it, just go. Like we'll fucking Lysol that shit later. Like he literally told him, if I don't make it, just start in my place. Like, dude.
Well, it's also like, think about this too, right? Like, so he bikes there from his dad's work.
Yeah.
So did his dad drive to work and make him bike to his job?
I don't understand.
Like, you would think they would have carpooled together.
Yeah.
Right?
But even if they carpooled,
all he was trying to do was just teach him a lesson. Like, this is where you end up.
I mean, he wasn't
trying to like punish him.
He probably couldn't leave work though to drop him off. So he probably, I don't know if they took the bike with him. I really don't know.
Who's say? We don't know.
Again, he should have just told him, hey, I have this qualifying thing that I need to be in.
I'll do you one better, right? So the movie makes a big deal about, it does like the advertisement at the beginning of the movie with like the creator of the game. I forgot his name. Sorry. Right. And it does that. And then you see him throughout the movie in later parts of the movie. Right. So what's interesting to me is that the person that they use as the creator of the game isn't the actual creator of the game, who is still very much alive. Right. He actually does make an appearance later on in the movie as like the sushi chef for when him and his girlfriend go to the restaurant. Well, it's like, why not just use the actual creator of the game to play the creator of the game? That would have been a nice little detail and it's cool. But instead you use him as a cameo as a sushi chef and then you hire some actor to play him.
They wanted a Stan Lee moment.
Like, nobody knows what he actually looks like and nobody knows how old he actually is. So it kind of doesn't really matter.
Look, Jake from State Farm was an actual State Farm agent. And then they asked him for the new guy, for the new Jake, because new Jake is an actual actor, and they wanted to like utilize him more, I guess. Not saying this is the same thing, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. Maybe I just wanted to say that as a fun fact. But
congrats, you know State Farm lore. Congrats.
Hey, dude.
Give me some progressive lore next. What about Flo?
They tried to wean her off. Like, that's when they started introducing the other agents. But then everyone was like, where the fuck is Flo? We want Flo.
How does this affect LeBron's legacy? You think LeBron could race a car?
If he played enough GT, yeah, for sure. Anyone can, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. Going back to like the real life aspects of this movie of the story that they use in the movie. At first, watching this movie, when they started playing like the Kenny G and then the Enya, I was like, what the fuck? This is like kind of such a weird angle.
I was like, this had to be a real thing because it's so out there.
Yeah. It's so out there. It feels so random in the moment, but then it pays off at the end because there's like a really good bit at the end where he plays it over the thing and that gets him back in the zone. I thought that was really well done. I thought that was really
the way they handled the music, like the real music, and then like it transitioning to Jann's headphones, and then at the same time David Arbor's headphones, I thought was really cool. Like I like that they did it for his character as well as Jann's.
Super good, right? And then it's revealed at the end of the movie, like, oh, this is actually a real thing. He actually did do this before races to calm himself down. And then at that moment, you're like, oh fuck, that's awesome that they did. Now it's awesome, but in the moment, it feels so random. It feels so weird.
It was, again, this is where knowing kind of like it's based on a true story pays off, because it's like, this is so weird. This is so fucking random for this kid to be blasting Kenny G and Enya.
That takes place in the year 2023 in this movie, right?
Timeline, or 2013 like, in real life. And
in 2013, it would have been weird too.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, this has to be something he actually did. Unlike the shoes, which we don't know. we don't know what the shoe was. I need to know the story of the shoes.
I know I'm like kind of going backwards, but like when you were talking about like the relationship between David Harbour's character and then Jann.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was really cool, and I don't know, I don't think it's real, was David Harbour's character's stance on champagne. I thought was really fucking cool.
That
really
was
fucking
a baller
awesome.
ass line, dude.
Great.
Champagne is for the podium.
Champagne is for the podium.
That is fucking baller as fuck.
That's fucking tight. And it's like, it gives
title of the fucking episode.
Great fucking motivation, right?
Yeah.
And then it pays off. So this is the one time I'm like grateful for the stupid make-believe girlfriend. Where it's like when they're on their date in Tokyo and she tries to get him to drink champagne and he's like, no, champagne's for the podium. Like, yeah, Jann, fucking tell her.
It is just so fucking random though to like have champagne at, what were they like, at sushi or something?
Yeah. Such a dope line though. Like it works.
It's hard as fuck. It is hard as fuck.
Hard as fuck. Champagne is for the podium.
You know what's not hard as fuck? Milk. I'm looking at you, NASCAR. Fucking lame ass shit. Driving in circles.
Lame as shit.
Drive in circles and have milk. Fucking lame.
Yeah, no, champagne. No, because what are you gonna say? Milk is for the podium. Like, you're not gonna say that.
You want milk in your cereal?
Lame.
No. Milk is for the podium. The fuck?
I will say this: the fucking crashes, though. So, like, obviously, we talked about Jann's crash, but like the crash with the Kappa guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the crash with the Kappa teammate. I don't think he was like a Kappa guy, but the rainbow motherfucker.
Yeah, he was like another team.
Fucking the crashes that they filmed in this movie, fucking awesome, dude. They look so fucking crazy.
Dude, the one where the guy caught on fire. I was like, oh shit.
And then Jann like freaking like, oh my god, is he alive? Because like, yeah, even though Jann doesn't like him, he's so scarred from what happened. He's like, dude, please tell me.
That was a good character moment, which was kind of rare in this movie because of so much shitty dialogue. The script must have been written by multiple people, because how you come up with champagne is for the podium and then have shitty lines like one of the Kappa guys going, I'm gonna nerf you. Like,
it's just like so inconsistent sometimes, you know?
Yeah, it's bonkers. Like, the highs of the movie are pretty high, but the lows are just so low. It was like, again, modern like if you were to make Disney Channel movies in today's terms, that was what the first part of the movie was. It was a fucking like, Disney Channel movie.
So like, I agree with you. Like, the highs are really fucking high and the lows are really fucking low. Thankfully, in this movie's benefit, the lows are like smaller parts of the movie, you know, versus the highs being bigger parts of the movie. So like, for example, like the highs of the movie are a lot of the racing shit, which that's a way big part of the movie. So that therefore like way more detrimental, versus the lows just being like some of just the beginning stuff. It does suffer from like the summer blockbuster like syndrome, where there's just things that are too like dumbed down or like too simplified. But ultimately, I would call this movie a huge success. I would say that it definitely defies expectations. Does this movie do as well if video game movies didn't have the reputation that they have? I don't know. Maybe not.
I think it's about the same, to be honest.
It's a good movie. Like, I think it's a really good, fun movie that I would recommend to people. Maybe not everyone, but like, it's something that I at least think if you're looking to have a good time and you can get into like the racing aspect of it, then for sure I would recommend this.
You know what? Actually, I will. So I'm looking at the box office numbers for this. So the budget is an estimated 60 million, and the gross worldwide is almost 122 million dollars. So I just thought of something that maybe helped contribute to its success, even though like we were saying like, oh, racing movies aren't really a big thing that people want to go to, or video game movies kind of suck. I think around this time, or no, even before that, Formula One started blowing up because of the Netflix show. So that probably got a lot of people in the seats for this movie. Now that I think about it.
I really think the based on the true story angle helped them out so much, because like, it's just like you said, it's so unbelievable. Like, how is this based on a true story? So like, it's almost like you have to go watch it, because you like, how is this a true story? You know, it's just like, shout out to the real actual Jann, because like, it's just remarkable.
Insane.
It is such an insane story. It's not like he's the most decorated racer ever. He's not. But he has some notoriety. He has some accomplishments in the sport. And that in of itself is the amazing part about it, because it's so unlikely to happen. You know?
And I believe now he's racing in Japan, I think. From what I read.
He's so like his career is primarily in Japan right now. And he's young too. That's the thing. Like, I don't even think he's in his 30s yet.
I think he's my age, actually. I think he's like 32.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he is in his 30s. But like, he's super fucking young. He's not that much older than us, if like that at all, you know?
Yeah, he's 32.
It's fucking insane, dude.
And here I am, like, just talking about fucking movies in my bedroom. at
But yeah, no,
11:24.
shout out to him, man, because that is such a crazy fucking story, dude.
Yeah.
So insane.
Again,
so
it's one of those things where if you're watching this movie, you just have to remind yourself most of this actually happened. Like the overarching like story happened. Like it's legitimate.
Yeah.
Which is insane. It's even just insane for Nissan to just even do that.
Do this,
to
dude.
just even do that is just insane. Like, why would you put that liability on yourself? Like, that's insane. And this doesn't work for any other type of like sport.
Yeah.
Like these fucking people that play in 2K League probably aren't the best ballers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But even then, right? Even if you play a lot of Gran Turismo, the G-forces, which they emphasize in this movie, the G-forces of actually driving a car, the consequence of actually clipping a railing, like it's so different than playing a simulator with feedback. Like it's just so again, just it's still an insane ass story. And yeah, that definitely helps this movie 100%.
What did you think of the format for Le Mans? Like, how did you think they handled that scene? Because like me personally, like I thought it was great. I thought it really built the tension, having like the other two racers involved. I thought having the guy before Jann
cramp up,
big climate says cramp up. I was like, oh, that's great. Like that's believable. You know, like I could totally see that happening.
There's nothing
I cramp up driving normally.
So there's not a whole lot I would change about that scene because I thought they for trying to like piece together a 24-hour race in X amount of minutes, I thought they did a really good job. I just wish they showed a little bit more of what went into the in-between. So when the racers were resting, they really only just showed them just like sitting in a chair. Like I really wish there was like a little more drama to that where they're like showing them like fucking like, fuck, I'm so tired, and just like passing out or something, or like eating or just like staying moving or something along the lines of like what they actually do. Unless they do actually just sit there, but I doubt it if they're going to cramp up.
Who knows, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I do think them doing a 24-hour race is also really cool because endurance races in Gran Turismo, specifically Gran Turismo 2, from what I understand, my friend, my coworker, he's a really big Gran Turismo 2 enthusiast, and one of his biggest core memories is like doing endurance races on Gran Turismo 2, which would take hours. Yeah, to the point where it is like how it's kind of portrayed in the movie, where he was telling me how he would start out the race, then his brother would take over. And then he would come back and like they would take turns finishing this one race. Yeah. Which is like, if you're like a real Gran Turismo fan and you've done these endurance races, watching this movie and basically them doing an endurance race in real life must have been like a really surreal fucking cool experience. It's just fucking awesome, dude. Like I thought the way they handled it was awesome.
Can I go back and knock on this movie for a little bit? I think a lot of where the movie falls flat is establishing Jann as a person and like his racing experience and his even just driving experience, but also it didn't even seem like he had a lot of knowledge about the sport itself. Like I feel like you might have maybe heard about Jack Salter, you know, David Harbour's character, or at least have some sort of knowledge on him, and he never like, you know, like how we mentioned LeBron or Steph Curry or
It doesn't even show him watching like real life races.
Yeah.
Like, it only ever shows him watching Gran Turismo.
Yeah, and it just kind of makes him seem fucking delusional, Delulu, that like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a racer because I'm really good at Gran Turismo.
You show no interest in the sport at all. Like,
exactly.
At least they haven't shown us anything game. Where you've shown.
He's not watching real races. He's just playing the video game. Like Again, I just nitpicking that. Not even nitpicking. It is just a huge criticism. It's just. It's just something I can't overlook. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I even think like he wasn't even that big of a Gran Turismo player, even in real life to begin with. And then like it was like something like he played casually. And then when he heard about this opportunity, he
started practicing, right?
He got better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is what actually closer to the truth. Again, like even the real life story is just more interesting than what they do in the movie.
This kid just wanted to be a racer really bad, didn't have the funds or the means to even try to like get into the game, but then goes like, oh hey, if you play this game really good, you have a shot at being a real racer. Then like, oh fuck, and then that motivating him to like
he was into it casually. He heard about the thing and he's like, let me just try this. Let me just try to get really good at this game.
Exactly.
And he did.
That would have been like a better story, in my opinion.
Yeah. before we start going into closing thoughts about it, I will say this. Let's talk a little bit about Neil Blomkamp, the director, right?
Okay.
So, I don't know a lot of Neil's work, but I'm very familiar with District 9.
Phenomenal. Love that movie.
Which is probably what I think it's probably one of his most popular movies. Super phenomenal movie, super fucking well done. Going into this movie, I can't help but think Sony, heads at Sony, really had a lot of interference in this, because I genuinely think if Neil was, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but if Neil had 100% creative control over how this movie would have gone, there would have been a lot less of the stupid popcorn flick fluff.
Bringing that back up, the fluff. There's a scene in the movie where they kind of bookend the relationship with his dad, or they kind of wrap it up. Mm-hmm. And they have that final moment where he goes, "Oh, I did this for you." It did not land because the relationship was so...
The relationship was a little bit... Because, part of what plays into that, too, is, they don't show... Like you said, you mentioned this earlier. Throughout the whole process of him, going to the academy,
mm-hmm.
There's, a whole montage section of him doing races. Not once do they show the dad.
Yeah.
Or even the mom watching his races.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that they kind of do regarding his parents was after he does GT Academy, he calls his mom and he tells his mom. But even his mom has such the most low-level mid-reaction to him winning GT Academy. It's like, Mom, I kind of won GT Academy. Oh, that's great. I'm really happy for you. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, this is huge. He literally went from playing a video game to racing a actual race car and winning a race that secures him a possible contract with a professional racing team.
Yeah.
And all you have to say is oh, yeah, that's great. You don't know what that means. You know what that means?
Especially since she was the one who was supportive of him even going in the first place. She was the one trying to convince the dad, hey, let him do this. He's not going to be that far. And then for him to fucking win, she's just yeah, cool. Yeah, nice. Nice.
Cool.
So to kind of wrap up, I do want to give this movie one more compliment. It's a 2-hour and 14-minute movie. Even though there's a lot of filler in this movie, it did not feel like 2 hours and 14 minutes. The pacing is pretty good. It goes by quick.
Even with the shit that we don't like about this movie, I agree with you 100%. The pacing is still handled really well.
Yeah.
They don't linger too long on things that suck. And the things that are good, they spend the right amount of time on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with that, let's get into the ratings. Sounds like you really love this movie.
I did, yeah.
So that being said, I'm really curious to how you're gonna rank this. So I want you to go first.
I want everyone to keep in mind that on a rating of 5 scale, 2.5 is what's considered average, right? Mm-hmm. I would rate this movie a 3.5. I think this movie is a lot of fun. I thought it was executed really well for what it is, and I had a lot of fun with it, where it's closer to the 4 side of 3.5 than it is closer to the 3 side of 3.5, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm going to give this movie a 2.5. Average.
Average, yeah.
The first part, obviously, is where I'm hardest on it. But the second half was just really a redeeming factor for me. I was about ready to turn this off and be like, man, this is so fucking corny. I can't get past this. This is a Disney Channel movie. But again, once he gets into the academy and once he goes through the ranks and starts racing, it becomes a pretty enjoyable watch. And David Arbor, the whole cast really just does a really, really good job. So with that, 2.5, which averages the score to a 3. So not bad at all. A 3 out of 5 for Gran Turismo. Pretty good.
It's a good watch. It's a really good watch. Definitely would recommend it to most people.
I think if I watched it in theaters, I'd probably give it a 3. Because I'm sure the sound of everything would have elevated that experience.
That shit would have fucking hit, bro.
Yeah, so it would have gotten a hypothetical 3 for me.
Do you think modernizing it to modern times was a That was really redundant. My bad. But do you think modernizing it was the correct choice, or do you think placing it in the actual era it took place would have been better? If we had in the back of our minds that this is taking place in 2013, maybe there's something that happens in our brain. We're like, oh, it's 2013. Corny shit was more acceptable back then. Like, this is fine.
To me,
or this is more acceptable.
It makes no difference to me because I never once thought, oh, is this taking place in 2013 or is this modern times? It was present enough to make me not even think about that. It's not until you see the fucking MP3 player where you're like, wait, why is he getting him that? But
yeah.
Other than that, it felt very present. Because GTRs were the same back then. 370Zs were the same back then.
2011.
2011? That's when this all happened? 2011?
2011 is when it happened.
So if we're framing it in 2011, you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, not 2013. I was saying 2013.
Either way, it doesn't change anything for me. I think the only thing that would have changed if it was set in like 2011 or some shit is he would have like G Fuel on deck.
Was that big in 2010?
I think so. I think it was big when like Call of Duty was big. That being said, that is our episode for today. You can follow us on Instagram at Nosebleed Matt for me.
Nosebleed Daniel for me.
And then Nosebleed AV Club for both of us for the whole podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, please drop us a rating, drop us a follow, and even leave a review if you're feeling generous. If you're watching this
on TikTok.
Oh yeah, sorry. We're also on TikTok. I always forget. Follow us on there. If you're watching on YouTube, consider hitting that subscribe button. If you haven't already, hit us with a like. Join the discussion. Leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts. And catch us on our website if you're into that. If you're old school like us, nosebleedav.club. And did I shout everything out? I think so.
That should be it. Hit us up on PSN. I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Race us in Gran Turismo.
Yeah, no.
You'll beat us easily. Easily. But again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one. Peace.